we're gonna talk about, obviously the hot subject is Falcons, right?
Mm.
And then all the lineups and the things that are happening and everything. So my hot take is that based on the current informations that we all have, that's publicly known, Falcons are not going to make the first CS2 major, no matter what the lineup is.
Okay.
Now, the reason for that, the reason why I'm saying that is simply just like look at the state of their team right now. They have nothing, pretty much. They have Boros and they have Magisk.
Yes.
Obviously, they have their coach, but they don't have anything. Now, Nico wasted, I think you and me, Duncan, talked about this. Nico wasted their like whole month, like trying to, get to the team and not getting there at the end and then coming back to G2 and whatever, right? So I don't think there's going to be enough time for them to find a proper player that's going to replace, that role, that's going to be, filling those shoes that were supposed to be filled by Nico. On top of that, they don't have an AWPer that can go to right now that can deliver such an impact for the team, because the AWPer right now needs to be an AWPer and a rifler because of the current state of CS2. On top of that, they don't have enough time and they don't have another player as well. So what is it, like 15th November now, and it's gonna be like a player break in a month, so that leaves what, maybe 2 weeks practice before the open qualifier for the RMR, because I assume Snappy's deal is pretty much done or whatever is about to be done, but you're still missing a couple of players. You still need to get the right infrastructure. You start practicing, you need to start developing the game and all these things. And we know how contracts work in CS. Like, it's so slow, it's so stupid. These agents are like, trying to get maximum, and there's always back and forth, and somebody is like super delayed and nobody wants to pay that much money. It's just a mess, right? So it's going to take a lot of time, and people don't practice. Like, if you don't buy somebody from a team, he's not going to be allowed to practice with your team. So they don't have a full squad. They don't have enough time. The player break is around the corner. Even if they want to play, they don't have anybody to play against that's going to be, at any kind of level they want to, play against to be ready for the qualifiers. So my point is that they're not going to make it. I would even go that far to say they're not even going to have a lineup by the time the open qualifiers start.
Okay, bold. What do you think, Maui?
I'll say they could probably put together a lineup. I mean, in the HLTV confirm where Zonic talked about the roster and everything like that, it seemed like he was in some ways actually doing them a service by saying you guys can look around, but then he said that we might actually bring some of them back onto the team. As it stands right now, the people that I know are going to be moving forward with this Falcons roster seem to be Boros, Magisk, and Snappy. So that's your core three. I will say that is not nearly as strong as when they were targeting Twist, m0NESY, and Nico. And that team would have, I would say that's a guarantee to make the major. But this one is, it does draw some questions. I will say that if they play with Boros, Magisk, and Snappy, and then I have to assume they're not going to find another AWPer, so I'm going to say they're going to play with MHL. And then I don't know who their fifth would be between NBK, Body, or Lonks. But I actually think if they play with, I would probably take like NBK or Lonks. It depends what you want. Do you want stability in a player like NBK, or do you want a player with a little bit more potential like Lonks? I think that team can make, like, I would give them like a, what percentage? Just a smidgen over 50%. Like, I would be pretty shaky on, I would be pretty on the ropes if I were like trying to defend that team in terms of saying like they're gonna definitely make it. But having the core of Snappy and Magisk is already, to me, pretty good. And I think that when you look at some of the other players there, like Boros and what he was able to do before, he hasn't been as good lately. I'll just put that out there. Like, Boros hasn't been as good as what we saw when he was playing with Monty, but he still can be a force, and I would imagine that if anybody's going to find the most value or get the most out of him, it will be someone like Snappy. So I still think that there's a good chance that they would qualify for the major, but it is still such a huge drop-off from a team that we thought was going to somehow just swoop into the scene, start winning every single tournament because they poached every good player from every other team, and it is a far cry from that.
I could ask you before Duncan goes on. Like, do you believe that they actually, with that lineup, Boros, Snappy, Magisk, MHL plus whoever, or maybe somebody else, they can have enough time to go through all these things, have a map pool that's halfway decent, go through the cutthroat open qualifier, best of ones, then to the coast qualifier, then into the RMR, and then into the major with so much little time? I don't think so. I don't think they can do it.
I mean the Falcons team with Kenny S and all of them was one match away from making it to the major.
CSGO.
That's true. But that team was so much weaker, and that had NBK, Body, and Kenny S, obviously. Like, it had Masuda on that team, actually. So I think that the European RMR is tough to get through for sure. Like, teams that we know are of the top tier can still fall out in that one. But I don't know if the competition is stiff enough that I'm too worried about a team that has the core of Magisk and Snappy. Like, I think that's a really, really good starting duo at the very minimum.
I'm going to side with Kassad on this one, because the problem there, I think you're doing, Maui, is you're taking those players like as they play now in other teams. Whereas like every single one of those players for me is like a question mark. Like, I've only seen Snappy in teams he's essentially for the last few years been able to hand pick, and then he never had any pressure out the gate. He was allowed months to get the lineup going, and then once it got good, people were like, oh, now I'll pay attention, right? In this lineup, he has to just immediately, like Kassad says, remember, he's playing with Ents. Like, he has to like finish up with Ents now, get this deal done, join them in the team in some context, get his players. By the way, this is assuming he has 4 players like immediately on day one he joins. And then that's when like everything begins. Like, as Christopher Hitchens used to say, all your work is ahead of you. It's not, none of the things you bring to the table really help you. And then how about the Magisk one, right? Actually, when I saw Magisk play in the lineups when Device left Astralis, and then when he first joined Vitality, I actually can't guarantee I know how this guy will play in a new lineup. Like, he might be half as good. He actually looked at times kind of a bit whatever in Vitality when he first joined. Like, yeah, he was better than fucking Masuta or whatever, but like, and Dupree wasn't that great, but it wasn't awesome. Like, he wasn't like Astralis Magisk. In fact, that's why there was all that speculation. If you remember, everyone said he should shift to IGL. Like, maybe he doesn't keep doing it. Like, what we're doing now is, yeah, he looked awesome at the end of Vitality. That's why everyone's taking it that he'd be a banger player in Falcons. And then the last one, Boros, like you say, he's just on Imma territory. He had one good tournament ever, and then everyone's waiting. Everyone's giving you like all the goodwill in the world. Like, okay, go on, do it. And it just hasn't happened yet. And he obviously has played fuck all lands, so it's just been irrelevant in that regard. So to me, I actually don't think that's much of a lineup right there. I mean, put whoever the fuck else you want. Like, MHL's not a bad player. You could probably find some people online. It doesn't matter. Like, the problem I have there is that lineup is dog shit on paper. Like, the real issue with this lineup is that lineup plus Nico, we're cooking with gas because we've got Nico, but Nico is doing a lot of the heavy lifting in your brain of like firepower, consistency. You know how they'll play. Like I say, Magisk is mega if he's like your third best player. At the moment, by the way, he's the best player we've got. And then we've got what? Boros, who knows? And then Snappy. It's not even working with a team. Like, his whole strength of calling, I don't think his Pog call. I don't think you can just drop him in an FPL game and he'll carry the game. So I'll side with Kassad. Like, obviously, you can fluke your way into the RMR. That can happen. But if I think about how many, like, random matchups you can get online, the fact that this won't be a real team as far as I can tell. In fact, it might be a really bad mixed team that itself immediately then doesn't exist after they fail the RMR. Wouldn't be surprised by that. Because here's another thing. You know, in a fucked up way, they almost shouldn't want to make the RMR. Because, like, how is this team, even when you then add players, how is it going to be good enough to do anything at the major? Probably isn't. Like, even if you made the RMR and then signed another 2 players, you probably don't get through the RMR. You're probably borderline for that too. So, because by the way, to very quickly, briefly touch on something, I've touched on other shows, and obviously me and Kassad did a piece of content that's coming out soon. The thing people really don't understand here is, low-key Nico has completely fucked Falcons up their arse for their time plan. Now, he hasn't in the sense that until he signs, they'd be morons if they treated it like he was definitely signing. But the problem is, essentially, he's the piece that has meant all these other names have said yes preliminary-wise, and they were moving towards completion. As soon as you take that one piece out, there's none of that. Like, my analogy, if you're a fan and you want to put it differently, would be, look, obviously, they would all join this Na'Vi team now because they were nobodies. But the main reason you joined this Na'Vi lineup is because it's that simple. That's the reason you join the projects. It's like, hey, if it works out though, I've got this guy, I can win everything. Yeah, I don't know if, like, look, they might have made those choices because of where they are in their career, but the point is, like, actually, I think now, even some of the other names you've heard that on paper probably were like 80% to join, they're probably like 40% or some of them 0% now to join. So I also think people don't realise they've essentially reset the whole process of recruiting for Falcons. Like you say, they've got 2 players, assuming Snappy joins, and then the Boros one if they want to keep him. But like, I think they're in a pretty tough spot, actually. I think, sadly, they've misplayed this sort of like roster mania.
The thing is, like, to add to your reset point, right? They resetted completely the recruitment, right? Which is putting them in a very tough spot, and there is no test runs anymore. Like, they're not gonna have 20, 25, official games online before they step into the open RMR wall. It has to be done right in the first take. And I don't think that can happen, especially with this lineup. If you had Nico and, for example, Twists or whoever they targeted, right? Monesi, yeah, they can have a chance. 50-50 in my opinion with that lineup, but with this one it's gonna go down to at least 30% chance they're gonna qualify. 70 they're not, because like I said, just there is no time to test anything. You need to get it right in the first place.
Also, I'll just throw this out there. If Nico was joining, I think the chances Snappy joined were 99%. If Nico isn't joining, I think the chances Snappy now joins are going to go like, maybe they're 60% still. I don't think it's as certain. Like, as far as I know, without speaking out of school, one of the reasons he wanted to join was to get like the absolute best players and to have a chance to like blow it out and win the major. So I don't even know if it's guaranteed he'll come now. Maybe he waits. Maybe he even says to them, maybe I'll play this major with then join after. Who knows, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's not far off, right? If you are, for example, Snappy, and you say like, listen, I'll extend the Ants deal. Maybe you have 10K salary, whatever, right? Let's say it like that. And then you got 6 more months with that salary, but the Falcons are offering 16, and the chances of you qualifying, or even 20, let's say 20, and the chances of qualifying for the major with Ants and getting the sticker money, and that money will be much larger than the money that you would get from Falcons in the first 6 months. Yes, you're gonna lose in the building the team kind of phase, whatever, right? But financially, that is probably the most important thing, and the fact that you can have a better chance qualifying and actually winning the major are much higher than in the Falcons. So overall, I wouldn't be surprised. Obviously, this is not me us saying, it's not the done deal, whatever. Just it makes more sense for him not to join now than to join. That's the thing.
By the way, just as a random aside, obviously people might know an infamous remark made recently by a leaker that whenever he says something where it doesn't say it's a rumor, where it just says like plus this player, he claimed that's a fact. So now we're even just changing the terminology of actual words that have been established for thousands of years in fucking Western civilization. Like now facts are just things you've heard from multiple people. Cool, awesome, right? Brilliant. Didn't know that was how that worked. Fucking hell. The worst thing about this leaker thing, by the way, is the way they're really just for real, like a little kid listening through a fucking door with a glass, but they're pretending like they're fucking like Oppenheimer, like doing all mathematical equations. Like you're pretending you're way too good, boys. Like you're just a fucking bozos spreading rumors. Like when I say it, it's a fact. Like bro, it's not even a fact that you have 5 fingers on your hand. You can't. I'd have to see it like properly. Like notes you do a fucking blood test. Like I don't believe anything you say. See more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or be a pleb and don't.